Hello everyone, how are you doing? Welcome to an algebra tutorial video learning about polynomials. So we're starting off this series talking about what is the definition of a polynomial. And I got some words here we're going to work with. In fact, there's going to be a ton of vocabulary words as we're starting off everything in this whole unit with polynomials. The first one I want to hit on is what is a term? So when we talk about a term in mathematics, a term is made of factors, of numbers, and variables that are multiplied together. So what we can see then is if we're working with expressions in algebra, 3 times a would be a term. Or another term would be maybe 14 times x times y times z. These are all examples of terms. So when we talk about polynomials, we need to start off with terms because a polynomial is simply the sum, that's addition, the sum of one or more terms, and those terms have to have whole number exponents. All right, so there is a definition of a polynomial. We're going to base it off that. We're going to fill out a lot more words here. But let's look at what we got here. We have a polynomial with 4 terms. 4x to the third is one term. Negative, or that minus 6x squared, is another term. The plus 11x is a term, and this last one is a term as well. So let's talk about this polynomial. We're going to get into some more words here. So we're going to talk about coefficients. When we're working with terms. And then we're going to talk about leading coefficient. We're going to talk about the degree of a term. And then we're going to talk about the degree of a polynomial. Then we're also going to have a constant term. We're going to talk about what that is as well. Okay, lots of words, right? Again, we're a whole new unit, so we need a lot of words to describe and be able to use and understand working with polynomials. All right, let's talk about what a coefficient is. So a coefficient is in any term, a coefficient is just the number part in the front that is being multiplied by the variables. So if I look at my examples of terms here, the 14 times x times y times z, this 14 would be the coefficient. It's the number part that's being multiplied by x, y, and z. If I take 3a, this term, the 3 would be the coefficient. So the coefficient is just a number. We ignore the variables. We're focused on just what is the number of a term. So coefficient, number at beginning of the term being multiplied. Beginning of the 2 dots there, beginning of the term. And then when we talk about leading coefficient in a polynomial, the leading coefficient is the coefficient of the term with the largest exponent. So here's my polynomial with 4 terms. The leading term, I need the largest exponent, that's x to the third power, and so we usually put that in the front. So my coefficient would be 4. My leading coefficient would be 4 of my 4-term polynomial. There we go. All right, so now let's talk about the degree of a term. I got a term and I want to know what is the degree. The degree is simply the exponent. So here I've got 4 terms. The degree of this term, the 4x to the third power, would be a third degree term. The degree of the second term here would be 2. The degree of this term, the 11x, 11 times x, would be a first degree. I would assume there's the x to the first power. We just don't write the 1. And the last term is what we call a constant term. We're getting into that soon. So a degree of a term, we're just looking at, well, what is the exponent? That tells you the degree. The degree of the entire polynomial, on the other hand, is it's the degree of the largest term, or the term with the largest exponent. So in this case, I find all four terms. The term with the largest exponent is x to the third. And so this polynomial I have here is four terms, but it is a third degree polynomial because it has an x to the third power. Polynomial. There we go. All right, and finally we have a constant term. What are we talking about with a constant term? So a constant means it never changes, right? So what term never changes? Well, any term without a variable. So a constant term is a term with no variables. So in this example right here, my constant term would be the 3 on the end, the plus 3. It's going to be adding 3 at the very end, no matter what I put in for x. If I put 1 in, if I put 5 in, if I put 1800 in, these terms are all going to change and vary based on what I'm putting in for x, but the plus 3 at the end will stay constant. It is locked in. It'll always be there. So that's what we talked about with a constant term. So there you go. There's a polynomial. We have multiple terms. It could be 1 term, 2 terms, 10 terms. It's just the sum of one or more terms. They all have to have whole number exponents. And we have lots of words that we use when we're describing polynomials, such as coefficients, degrees, and constants. Hopefully this is a helpful introduction for you in terms of understanding some of the vocabulary of polynomials.